folks onto the schools is going to cause a spike. We've already seen what Trump's program for reopening the economy has caused. It's caused massive rise in the pandemic when the states reopened too early a month ago. We're going to see the same thing with children and teachers if we send students back to the campuses. We have to stand for the protection and safety of the children. We are not going to sacrifice our students and children to Donald Trump and be pushed by anyone to move to the schools before this pandemic is under control. The United States has the worst record of any country in the world in terms of dealing with the pandemic. We need to turn that around. We obviously can't rely on the people who we've been relying on. Trump, obviously not, but even the governors, even the CDC. We need a movement of teachers, of families, of students who will stand up and demand that we actually take the policies that could, of mass testing, of tracing, of a national and statewide plan, not district by district, not city by city. The virus does not recognize the city boundaries. We need a national plan. We need a plan coordinated that can actually take on this pandemic the way any country in the world who's been successful has done. So we're out here today to demand no opening of schools, no going back to schools, keep our children safe. I'm a special education teacher at Edmund Brewer Middle School. I know that distance learning is a hardship, but we need to turn toward perfecting as much as we can distance learning, getting the high-speed internet out to all the families, getting the computers out. We need to be moving in that direction because any attempt to force special education students, young students onto the campuses is really a death sentence. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's hard, but we have to take policies that value human life above profits, above anything else. We have to preserve human life.
I am a special education resource teacher at East Oakland Pride Elementary School, and I am an organizer with the Equal Opportunity Now by Any Means Necessary caucus, B.A.M.N. And I'm here. I've been, marching with B.A.M.N, with thousands of people in Oakland, with millions of people across the country to stand up for the fight against racism. And when millions of people say Black Lives Matter and Brown Lives Matter, they mean it. And right now, our lives are being treated like it's okay for them to just be fodder to open up the economy. The economy has to come before everything. And no matter how many lives are lost, no matter how many, grandfathers and abuelas are sacrificed to that, that's all okay. And we're saying it is not okay. I know that young children need to be around each other and need to be around people to learn. But I know first and foremost that young children need their families and their caretakers to be alive to care for them. And so anybody who is angry, who is frustrated that the schools cannot open now, they need to blame Trump. It is his fault. There was no national plan. Now the United States is the worst. Our rates are far and above any other developed country, much less the richest country in the world. So I am angry that we can't go back to school. But I blame Trump, and I will not go back until we can test everyone in our community, until we can find out where the virus is spreading, until we can ensure that people have safe quarantine care. That if they have the virus, somebody will get their groceries. Somebody will keep their family safe. Somebody will, put them in an empty hotel room that's across the street. There is a way to solve this problem. We live in, 2020. We can solve this problem. We can fight this virus. We can save lives. But we need to use science, and we need to use the vast wealth of this country, not to just open it up so that we can keep concentrating it more for the 1%, but so that we can keep ourselves, our families safe and alive.
So you teach special ed? I have an autistic daughter like that. Can you explain to people in a little more detail why it's especially dangerous for special needs kids to be reopening and reopening?
Absolutely. I mean, I am so offended and find it so ridiculous when, we see politicians or even some of our district leaders say on TV, well, we really need to go back because, it's really difficult for students with severe disabilities to learn online. I'm like, well, it's really difficult for them to not get sick in a pandemic. A lot of students with disabilities also have health risks, are also more vulnerable to this virus. They also depend more on their caretakers than anybody else. So if their caretakers get sick, that leaves them especially vulnerable. So no, this is not safe for anybody. It is not safe for students in special education. It is not safe for kindergartners. It is not safe for high schoolers. What our community should be doing now is raising hell about the fact that we have not been given the healthcare resources that we need and that we deserve. Here in Oakland, around California, the virus is exploding, and not just Trump, but Newsom needs to do something. Newsom is failing California. South Korea has a smaller economy than California by itself. Why are their numbers so low and our numbers so high? I blame our state government. I blame our national government. This is not acceptable, and we will not go back and just go along with this plan using, our students, teachers, families as fodder. No, we are fighting. We are going to stand strong. We are not going to go in, and we're going to fight for human life, because Black lives matter, brown lives matter, all of our lives matter, and we are going to fight to make sure that they are not sacrificed on the altar of, a free market and the U.S. economy. No, our lives come first.
What are some bullet point requirements you guys would like for the schools to reopen?
Well, one, I think that there needs to be the capacity to test everyone in the school. Germany is testing all staff and students twice a week. How many people in Oakland have even been tested? I'm sure it's still a minuscule amount. So, we look to what the WHO says, to what other countries say. You test, you trace, and you make sure people have care. We should not be going to school with any cases out there. We should have 0 cases for 2 weeks. That's when it would, that would be ideal. If we see any other cases of people having symptoms, we should test everybody in 10 or 15 days, the way they were able to do in China. We have the resources. There is no reason why we are not doing that, except that our government does not care about us and is not willing to invest the resources necessary to save our lives. Especially the Black and brown communities and workers that are being affected, and they just want them to go back to work. And who cares if they get sick on the job? And who cares if their children get sick in school? Well, I care, our union cares, our families care, our students care, and we're not going to do it.
You guys gotten any response from local school districts? Or any kind of feedback at all?
All we've heard throughout the entire pandemic, actually, is, well, we're meeting and talking about it. We're meeting and talking about it. Everybody passes the buck. The federal government passed it to the states, who passes it to the counties, who passes it to the individual school districts. leadership in dealing with the COVID-19 crisis is astounding. But we're here to stand up and say, teachers are the leaders of our communities, parents and students, we're going to fight for each other, we're going to defend for each other. We don't have the money to invest in the resources that we deserve, but we can sure as hell say we're not going to go to school and lose our lives because what should be done for us in terms of health care is not being done.
So when the proposed reopening date comes around, could this possibly lead to a teacher strike?
I mean, I think, in the UK and Britain, when they were supposed to open on June 1st, the teachers union showed real leadership in that instance. And they said, do not engage in any talks with, the schools about opening up because it's not safe and we're not going. End of story. There are no conditions in which it will be safe. I can talk to you now wearing a mask. I cannot teach 5- and 6-year-olds with learning disabilities to read when it's already so difficult for them wearing a mask. I cannot let a child fall down and be crying on the ground without picking them up and offering them care. There is no such thing as social distancing in a school. And so what we need to do is, we need to just be clear that we need the resources now. We need somebody to be serious about fighting the virus now. And we're leading by example. We're showing we're serious, and we're not going to put anybody in a situation where them or their families are in danger. And so, we're not going to go in unsafe conditions. And that, period.
I just want to say, we are demanding that no schools reopen anywhere, not just here in Oakland, but anywhere in the country, because it's not safe to send students and teachers back into school during this pandemic. Trump's plan to reopen schools in the fall while this pandemic is raging is equivalent to a death sentence to our children and youth in our whole community. Schools are the pillars of our community, and so to keep the schools closed is actually keeping our whole community safe. And Trump is the #1 enemy in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And so in order to really make headway into fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to force Trump to resign or be removed. That is the only way that we're going to start to fight the pandemic in a serious manner. And so B.A.M.N is calling for Trump to resign or otherwise be removed from office. And we call on everybody who is serious about fighting for people's lives and fighting for the protection of our children and making sure that these schools stay closed until it's safe, to also demand that Trump resign and be removed. The fight for justice for George Floyd and victims of police brutality has given birth to a new civil rights movement with young people all over the country standing up and fighting, not just for justice for George Floyd, but also for a real fight against racism, for a fight to defend immigrant rights. We just won a victory at the Supreme Court in the defense of DACA and sanctuary cities. But we also, know that we have to fight to defend asylum. And all of these things, in order to defend our victories and also defend immigrant rights, we have to get rid of Trump. And in order to make a serious fight to stop the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to get rid of Trump. And so for all of the parents, and teachers, you have the power right now to not go into school, not send your children to school, and save lives. And so, that's what we're calling on. We're calling on the teachers not to go into school, on the parents not to send your children to school, and also to call on Trump to resign or be removed, because he is the biggest threat to humanity. He's the biggest threat to justice. He's the biggest threat to immigrant rights. But at the same time, we have
Francisco Unified School District. My name is Karen, K-A-R-Y-N, Gratimos, V-R-A-T-I-M-O-S. I have been in the San Francisco Unified School District for 2 years. When we first came to the school district, I was with my 2 children as a single mother. I identified with the Latinx community. We came here and we were homeless. The school district helped me. The teachers became my family of my children, and we're both very young at the time. My daughter is 8 years old. She has nonverbal autism and an underlying congenital myopathy. She has been struggling to be in and out of the hospital since she was first born in 2012. Her brother is now going to be going into first grade, and he is a typical child. So what we have experienced from distance learning has been challenging. Although they split their time with their dad now, it has been very challenging to be able to accommodate a child that cannot sit and stare at a screen and be able to engage. However, this has given me a time to connect with who she really is, her strengths, her weaknesses, where she needs help. And as a parent, that is our responsibility to be there for our children. She has been my #1 priority for healthcare since the day she was born. I have spent nights, weeks in the hospital, watching the doctors fight for her life because she has returning pneumonia every single year she goes into the hospital. She is not able to go to school like a typical child. So we are thankful for the time that we've been able to spend at the school district level. And they have been nothing but helpful to us. However, I have seen firsthand how nursing staff has been very limited to a child like Sienna. Not only does she have lung disease and nonverbal autism, she needs an AAC device, which requires first-hand contact with the teachers in her speech therapy, her visit, and her occupational therapy to be able to engage her to communicate. You cannot touch a child, you cannot say that we can't touch a child, Sienna, when she needs to hit herself, she needs to regulate. She needs someone to calm her body so she can get out of sorts and focus and learn. We need that personal connection, and unfortunately, that cannot be met. The nursing staff, we have a district nurse, and then we work with an agency that contracts nurses to come in. I have come to school and found out that my daughter was not fed through her feeding tube. Due to her chronic lung disease, she has a feeding tube, a gastroenterology tube, implanted surgically into her stomach since she was born. This was the first time that she was ever able to go to school 2 years ago because a nurse was there to be able to tube feed her. So if we cannot protect the most vulnerable children, how can we send back everyone and say that that is justice and say that that is safe for our community? I resonate that these are our jobs, these are our livelihoods. But while we were in that shelter, these teachers showed up for us. They still bring me food bags every week to my house. They are risking their lives for my daughter, for my children, for my family, and they have helped us rebuild until we were able to be housed through homeless prenatal in San Francisco. These are the funds that we need to be investing in our communities. We need to defund all the money going to the police into programs that can help families get off the streets. I spoke at the Board of Supervisors meeting last year when we were talking about the budgets on behalf of homeless prenatal. And because of hearing families that are living in SROs, in a multi-generational household, in our community, we have a very immigrant Latino community at Sanchez Elementary in San Francisco. And without resources, a lot of these families are on the streets. They are homeless, and you don't even know when you go to school that this child does not have a house to return to. That was my family. No one knew what I was going through, but those teachers did, and their lives matter. The teachers' lives matter. They need to be heard. And how can a school district at a town hall meeting say, oh, the superintendent tells us that the only plan they have is that they have no plan? That's not good enough. That's not good enough to support the teachers, the paraprofessionals that dedicate their lives to my daughter. I have seen transformation in her since she's been able to go to school. But I am willing to put that on hold because I have held her lifeless body in my hands. I have sat by her bed and I have watched her fight for her life. And I don't want any mother to have to go through that. All these mothers that are losing their black children in the black and brown community, it is not right. And to say that we are the guinea pigs of this during this time to just send our kids back, that is not justice. That is not right. That is not equality. If we can't protect our most vulnerable in the community, we cannot protect anyone. And that falls on the hands of Mayor London Breed. She has tried to push and say that she will make changes in our city. And I believe that we need the Board of Supervisors to continue to do what is right, to protect the voices that are unheard. If my daughter was here, I would have her speak up for herself, but she cannot say words. So I am her voice, and I'm here today to speak for every family. The underprivileged families that have experienced homelessness, I stand with you. The special needs families that are fighting for their kids' lives and are scared to send them to school on a regular day, let alone during a worldwide pandemic that Trump has not cared to address the most vulnerable in the community, just like he has done his entire term in office. I stand with you, and I stand with every parent that is tired. You need to go to work. We're all hurting. I've lost 2 jobs from not being able to have anyone care for my special needs child. I am her caretaker. I stand with you, but we need to stand together across the Bay Area, across California, across the nation to do what is right and be the voice for our children. If we lose more children, we are just giving in to the systemic racism by saying that if you can afford private school, if you can afford to be in a nice neighborhood where you have better access to a school that has ventilation, that they can socially distance, your life matters more? No. It starts at the ground. We need to build a foundation. If that's what you said today in your address to the whole state, Gavin Newsom, I expect you to stand by that. We need a foundation that is strong and has a plan. You can't give these teachers just till the end of the month and say, now we're going to make this decision for you and you don't have a voice. The parents were given a survey in San Francisco that we can fill out, but the teachers were told that the Board of Education will make the call on their lives. This is affecting everyone, and we deserve to be heard. We will keep talking, we will keep speaking up until you do what's right, and we will not reopen the schools. We will not send our children back and risk their lives like they don't matter. There are children being slaughtered on the streets every day, and I don't want any mother to have to go through this. This needs to stop. Enough is enough. We will stand here and we will continue to fight. Thank you very much, and we will be organizing a protest next week in San Francisco, a car caravan, and we will be going to be affiliated with by any means necessary to stand up to the school district and tell them to take control of the situation and stop giving us a scripted message of